During the first month of Gerald Ford's presidency, inflation was increasing at a rate of 10.9% per year. Ford attempted to decrease inflation by starting a Whip Inflation Now program and encouraged citizens to wear win buttons to raise awareness. But unfortunately, simply wearing these buttons had little impact on the economic state. Ford did not decrease inflation, and it grew at a rate of 0.7% per year. He began to turn to alternatives, which were to cut government spending, control the budget, raise interest rates, and tax cuts. President Ford's foreign policy was mostly unsuccessful. He tried to convince Congress to agree to sending further military aid to South Vietnam, but in 1975 the country fell to North Vietnamese Communist forces. Later on, however, President Ford did sign the Helsinki Accords to help settle tensions with the Soviet Union. This was meant to strengthen the relationship between Western nations and the Europe's communist countries. However, the Soviets failed to keep their promise to uphold these basic human rights.
During the Ford administration, inflation had an annual rate of above 12%. Wholesale prices reached 20.4%, and the U.S. trade deficit hit $1.1 billion. Unemployment grew from 5.4% to 6.5% within the span of 3 months and later reached 7%. In December of 1974, Ford admitted the economy was in recession. This led to the $16 million tax cut that was supposed to give the economy a jumpstart.
During Ford's time as a president, the federal budget focused spending on Social Security, unemployment, and labor. It also spent the most money on national defense as we needed it against communism in Vietnam. Ford spent way more money than came in, and therefore pushing the U.S. into greater economic issues. Overall, the federal debt increased by 3%. Ford attempted to fix the inflation issues by raising taxes. Of course, this didn't help everyone, as not everyone was able to pay the higher tax rate. He is more conservative than most presidents. He tried to fix the labor and unemployment issues as well. He didn't much help the immigration, as he strongly opposed that. He did not focus on technology either. None of these really worked, as inflation did not go down from raising the taxes. They did not work because people tried to spend less in order to pay the taxes, which he made higher.
During the Ford presidency, America's GDP rose by 2.2%. After being thrown into a falling economy, Gerald Ford also lowered the GDP by controlling taxes and increasing spending. These were not his ideas. In fact, he was against them until his economic team really pushed it. However, inflation was still a problem, as the rate was increasing by 12% every year of his term. He left Jimmy Carter a sticky situation. When Jimmy Carter was president, the GDP of the country rose by 3.2%, which is surprising because he lost control of the rest of the economy. The unemployment rate decreased by 2%, which is good, but inflation increased by about 36% at the end of his term. Carter did not know how to handle such a dramatic economy and gave a speech that everyone expected to be about how to fix inflation, but instead was about the downfall of the American spirit, which made people think Carter was blaming the economy on them. In the end, Carter left office with an economy in recession. Jimmy Carter promised to start new programs and innovations to heal the wounds of the Vietnam War and Watergate scandal. He also promised to promote human rights, the Panama Canal Treaty, peace in the Middle East, and to restore morality and honesty to the federal government. And he sure did try to keep these promises. He did a pretty good job, but he did little to help inflation.
During the Carter administration, mortgage rates pushed 20% and low interest rates hit the home and auto industry the hardest. An average of 8 million people living in the U.S. were unemployed, and the national unemployment rate was approximately 7.7%. Conflict in the Middle East persuaded leaders to drive up the oil price, which in turn caused gas prices in the U.S. to skyrocket. But by early 1981, GDP and unemployment returned to pre-recession levels.
During Carter's presidency, the federal revenues and spending rose at an equal rate, yet the spending was, of course, more than the revenue was. Our federal spending during Carter's time was focused on education, unemployment, and labor. He also spent a lot on national defense. Overall, the federal debt increased by 2%. Carter attempted to fix economic issues by trying to accommodate to what the country needed most. The country needed jobs and a better market. Carter created jobs, put higher taxes on the wealthy, and provided education for immigrants. Most of these did work, as he did provide for immigrant children and tax the more wealthy. Some things he did fail to do, such as privatize Social Security.